Welcome, everyone, and thank you again for being here. And I recognize a few names here, actually, so lovely to see you. Um, I appreciate this opportunity to reflect on the relationship between the book, the topic of my book, the Illumination, which is the practice of silence illumination, and peacemaking, which is what I have heard and my understanding is the orientation shared by everyone here. And oftentimes, when we talk about meditative practice, we hear about the emphasis on cultivating inner peace. And that's why we do meditation. And very often, practitioners engaging in meditative practice may, through their own way, go about creating a mind that is peaceful, that's quiet, and going to cleanse or experience a mind without much activity, and thinking that's what we are moving towards, and usually believing that is what inner peace is in meditation. And oftentimes, in our effort to create this peaceful mind state, we may resort to various strategies. Sometimes we know that, sometimes we may not know that. One way or the other, suppressing activities of the mind to create this peaceful state. One way or the other, blocking out thoughts and feelings that we believe should not be there, because I'm meditating. The mind is supposed to be calm and peaceful without much activities. That I thought that's what I'm doing here. And so throughout the years, I've been working with practitioners who are very diligent, serious, dedicated practitioners. They have been, I discovered that folks have been engaging in various ways, strategies. You probably may know of many, of blocking out thoughts and feelings in the mind. Perhaps sometimes maybe by using the method, by holding on to the method very tightly. If it's a breathing method, holding on to it very tightly to drown out thoughts and feelings, or to tell ourselves that I'm here practicing, and when thought shows up, push it away, turn away from it, come back to the method. This idea of coming back to the method, it's at the same time mental action of pushing away thoughts. Everyone had their own way of doing it. You know what you're doing. So I hope you do. And you, as you're hearing this, you think like, isn't that what we're supposed to do? So like, aren't we supposed to, if you have been reading the Buddhist teaching, it's not uncommon for you to encounter teachings such as not give rise to unwholesome thoughts, or when wholesome thoughts arise, cut them off. Like that we like. You might think that isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? It's like, of course, this is based on the idea that these thoughts are not supposed to be here. And we believe that we don't let them show up so that they don't turn into speech and action. That's what we're doing. If we take a moment to think about this, when these thoughts and feelings, maybe anger, maybe hateful thoughts, maybe resentment, maybe not like that, maybe thoughts that we have determined are not allowed. They are not the right thoughts that should be here. Maybe it has to do with them not fitting into our idea of who we are, or other sort of thoughts that we disapprove of and label as thoughts that shouldn't be here. When these thoughts arise, but are blocked out of our awareness, we might think that they are gone, but they're not. They are just allowed to shape our actions without our being aware of them. We let them roam free and take over behind the scene. So what that means is that if these thoughts and feelings causing harm, creating difficulty, challenges, conflict for ourselves and others, because we're not aware of them, we are not able to stop them or intervene. So by blocking them out of our awareness, we are actually giving them free rein. When we allow into awareness these thoughts and feelings, for example, feelings that we don't allow because it's bad, I shouldn't give rise to these feelings, maybe resentment towards a group or anger towards a group or person. When we allow them into awareness, what is that we can actually keep an eye on how our emotions and thoughts, maybe thoughts that have involve some kind of bias or prejudice, and shape our speech and action, so that in the moment when we feel compelled to act on these thoughts and feelings, we actually can choose not to act them out. So these feelings or thoughts are here, very prominent, but we don't have to turn them into speech and action. So, for example, we may feel all this anger towards a person. Maybe it can go so far as really embracing and loving this person, but at least we can avoid blurting out very hurtful, damaging things that cause harm to others, that we come to regret, that cause serious damage to our relationship that we did not intend to do. So here the question is, do we know what we are doing with our mind? What are we cultivating? Do we know in our meditative practice? What are we cultivating? And in the practice, we engage in meditative practice of cultivating moment-to-moment clear awareness. It offers us an opportunity to see what it is that we are actually doing in our mind oftentimes folks that like meditation is a time to kind of feel peaceful, feel calm, enjoy the peace and calm. That happens. That's nice. But really, the reason why we call it practice, is that it offers us an opportunity to see into our mind, to see what it is that we are actually doing. Some of you who might be familiar with the practice of silent illumination, some of you maybe not, and that's why I thought it would be a good idea to start with a short meditation practice. This practice is often known as just sitting, allowing the body to sit, breathing moment to moment as it is. As the Chan master, Hong Zhi, who articulated the practice of silent illumination, he used these phrases as his instruction. Stay with this, just as this. Stay with that, just as that. Moment after moment after moment. Quite simple. But when we try to do it, we don't stay with this just as this. We add things. We want to take things away. We are unhappy with what this is, and we want to improve it. The way to go about this practice, you may notice how I in the guided meditation that I talked about as we notice often feelings showing up. That's part of the present moment, besides the changing sensations of the body breathing. So let through, let be, let go. Allow whatever comes up, arise in mind through. Allow them to be, allow them to move on. In other words, staying with this, just as this, moment after moment. Now the question is, for those few minutes that we were practicing together, are we letting through? Are we letting through? I have met practitioners who've been engaging in, I think even Zen practitioners. They told me the hardest thing is to let through. Going by their experience, perhaps many of us will find that we're probably not letting through some thoughts or some feelings. Maybe let through some, but maybe you notice kind of random thoughts, they come through and they go on. But there's something that we're not quite letting through. We're resisting for them to be in awareness. And if we really think about it, we may think that, oh yeah, these thoughts, feelings, they're here to kind of disturb me, disturb my calm mind, to distract me from my effort to stay on method. But actually, these thoughts or feelings are part of ourselves. Whose thoughts are they? They're our feelings and our thoughts. And really, when they show up, it is ourselves trying to be heard by ourselves. Ourselves trying to tell something that we have been ignoring, refusing to acknowledge. So when we let through, this might be something that we notice, that there's anger here. We may not want to acknowledge this. I'm not an angry person. There's anger, it's inconvenient. information, or there is fear that may challenge our sense of who we are, or that this person really did this, that they did something that we don't really want to believe this person actually did, or this is happening, and something we wish is not happening. Like, so there are reasons for our resisting them to be in awareness, but when we block them out using all our strategy, we essentially remembering that these thoughts and feelings are actually part of ourselves, trying to be heard, telling ourselves something, like a little kid coming to knock on the door to tell us something about what happened at school. Like when we block them out, we are essentially yelling at ourselves. No, I don't want to hear you. There's no fear. There's no anger. This is not happening. Shut up. Silencing ourselves. Telling ourselves, you're wrong. This person didn't do that. No, this is not happening. Because when we are doing this, are we making peace? Or are we making war? Do we know what we are doing in our meditation? Have we been making war, engaging in struggle within our mind, while believing that we are making peace, making the mind, quote unquote, peaceful by not allowing thoughts and feelings through into awareness? Do we know that when we do this in this process, that we are actually cultivating the habits of reacting to thoughts and feelings with aversion? One of the 3 poisons that the Buddha talked about. How do we do that? Like, this thought shows up, label it bad, not allowed, and give rise to dislike, aversion. So that drives us to act it out by blocking it out. So, does it sound like peacemaking? So, for those of us who think about peacemaking, probably familiar with the notion of deep listening, empathy, non-judgment, and not perpetuating hatred, violence, or harm, inflicting harm in whatever way that we engage our work. So when we are blocking out these thoughts, silencing these thoughts and feelings, what it is that we're doing is actually engaging in the unwholesome action that the Buddha advised us against if we like to cultivate inner peace. Like, so the unwholesome thought that we have been perpetuating inadvertently is this habit of reifying these thoughts, turning them into our enemy, and reacting with aversion and ill will and hatred without our knowing. So the practice of silent illumination is the practice of peacemaking. That's why I came to the topic of today's talk. But it is not by suppressing or silencing the mind to creating the illusion of peace, blocking out thoughts and feelings so that it appears that nothing is happening, and the state being mistaken as peace. Now, many of us are probably familiar with the fact that many parts of the world look peaceful, but beneath the veneer of quote-unquote peace is brutal oppression, silence, people silent. And I don't imagine that is what we mean by peacemaking here. And when we notice this, what it is that we are doing in our mind, when we block out these thoughts and feelings, then we'll be able to recognize that what we are doing, indeed, is suppressing, silencing ourselves. We are perpetuating this habit. So in the practice of silent illumination, cultivating this moment-to-moment clear awareness, whatever is arising, whatever thoughts and feelings, even though they are disagreeable, let through, allow it through. They're already part of the present moment. With that, we will be able to notice that our resistance to do so, and recognize our habits of blocking them out, trying to suppress and silence ourselves, and the practice, and also the habits of sort of bias or believing in the preconceived notion of what's arising, believing that we already know what this thought is about. Every moment is brand new. Every moment is the coming together of constantly changing cosmic conditions. So when we notice this habit of telling ourselves that I already know this thought, that's why I'm blocking it out. I already know what is going to happen, what it's going to do. We are forgetting. We are forgetting the true nature of existence, that every moment is brand new. By telling ourselves, I already know, that's why I know this must be stopped now. Blocking. When we recognize this habit activated, then we can choose to release the compulsion to act this habit out and allow that which is arising to come through. So here, it's already here. We're releasing the habit of blocking, shutting it out, creating this agitation and tension in our mind. And when we give rise to this agitation and tension in the mind in an effort to block out what is already part of the present moment, this action itself is not peace. So for many practitioners who are habituated to blocking out thoughts and feelings to create a quote-unquote peaceful mind, or to be in a state of inner peace that they think needs to be created, letting through, the practice of letting through can be incredibly challenging. That's why many practitioners told me that's something that they've been working with for years, if not decades. Because letting through will feel like it's violating all your core beliefs about what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Especially you've invested a lot into blocking out these thoughts to create this peaceful mind. So when we notice that we let through, and then we go back to blocking thought out, that is very good. Already progress that we are willing to engage at all. And when we let through, let be. Letting be here means allowing thoughts and feelings to be fully felt and seen and heard as they are moment to moment. And they remember me mentioning that in the guided meditation, that there's no need to analyze or explain them, because oftentimes we have this urge to explain why I think this, and sometimes it may be some kind of analysis or a psychoanalysis, or maybe in some way maybe rationalize them. It's not about judging these actions, but whatever we do in trying to analyze or explain these thoughts, they are getting in the way of our directly experiencing these thoughts and feelings as they unfold moment to moment. So when we allow them to be fully felt and seen and heard as they are, it is really the practice of deep listening to ourselves deeply. Whatever that is said or unsaid, and the unacknowledged aspects of these stories. So oftentimes we feel that well, I already know what this thought is about. It's about that thing that happened years ago. And I already know. Well, get a little irritated that it's here again to disturb our meditation. And well, chances are that's because we have not allowed ourselves to be fully heard. It's like that little kid who came to tell us something, and we let the kid tell us for 15 seconds. All right, good, bye, go play again. We listen to just a little bit, but not the whole thing. And that's why they return, because they haven't been heard. Letting be refers to allowing what arises to be fully felt, so that it is not only about paying attention to the, the verbal components of these thoughts, because very often what shows up is accompanied with or propelled by the emotive aspects of the experience. So, for example, if we notice thoughts like, oh, they cannot be trusted. We only hear the thoughts, but when we allow it to be fully felt as well, we notice the emotive components of the thought, underlying, accompanying, maybe fear, maybe disappointment that was perhaps triggered by betrayal that we experienced in the past, or anger, maybe from having been hurt in the past. So these feelings accompany these thoughts, and it requires us to commit to allowing whatever arises to be fully felt and seen and heard, so that we are no longer dismissing, ignoring some part of ourselves, allowing ourselves to be fully heard. And with this, the deep empathetic understanding naturally arises, does not require analysis. Allow ourselves to be fully heard, that we can, this empathy, understanding will arise naturally when we stop getting in the way by berating ourselves for having thoughts and feelings. Like, oh, there are these thoughts here, feelings. Stay with this just as this. And when we feel heard, fully heard and understood and seen and felt, we feel loved and no longer feel the need to inflict our suffering on ourselves and on others. Oftentimes, when we are fully heard and seen, these thoughts and feelings will be discharged instead of feeling the need to act them out. Now we are truly making peace with ourselves. So this inner peace is not about disengaging. Rather, it's about fully recognizing and accepting the present moment experience as it is. Stay with this just as this, including the entrenched habit of blocking thoughts out, not letting them through. That too might be what's happening in the moment. And we're recognizing and accepting with total clear awareness allows us the opportunity to become truly familiar with how these unhelpful habits are triggered and unfold thought after thought after thought. It can be these thoughts, this belief, followed by a strong emotion that compel us to act it out. With the way we feel compelled to believe in it and act them out, and even when we know about the habit, like, oh, I know I do this, right? And then we know, and we also know I don't want to perpetuate it. I know I should not keep perpetuating. I should stop. The harshness, this another additional layer of aversion. That's what I mean by becoming very familiar with how these unhelpful habits show up and unfold. And by staying with all the thoughts and feelings, including these habitual rejecting and blocking of thoughts and feelings, that we can notice how these entrenched habits are activated so that we can catch ourselves out in the act as these habits show up and cause ourselves suffering. We can notice this thoughts, this compulsion, wanting to follow and act it out, but not act it out. Release the habit, not perpetuate it, not feel it. And that's the process of unlearning. And letting go when thoughts and feelings are ready to move on, allow them to go. When we recognize and remember that everything is the coming together of causes and conditions, nature of emptiness, all is impermanent. Now here I'm not talking about abstract knowledge. We're talking about directly experiencing that each moment is so. Then it will be very obvious that these thoughts and feelings won't stay forever. They will go on their own. It is not necessary for us to exert any effort to make them go away. A lot of folks who say, like, yes, I want to let go. I want to let go. They're not letting go. They are not letting through and not letting be and trying to make things go away. So when they're working very hard to let go, oftentimes they are making things go, being in a hurry, instead of allowing them to go when they're ready to. In other words, not truly letting be. Really is like begrudgingly letting thoughts and feelings through. And okay, you can be here just for a little bit, and now you must go. It's like opening the door to this little kid who's trying to tell you something. Begrudgingly opening it does. What is it? I'm busy. And here is 5 seconds you have. And now time's up. Close the door. Let go. That's not letting go. We're hardly letting be, hardly letting through. So notice when we are engaging in this begrudgingly letting through, letting be, and recognize that this is not silent illumination. And you can see it is not making peace. because we're still trying to block and silence and suppress part of ourselves. We're merely tolerating these thoughts and feelings for a little bit, not truly allowing them to be fully felt and seen. And it is very good when we notice that this is happening, that we are doing this. That is this moment-to-moment clarity that we are cultivating. That we gain insight into our habitual reactivity and recognize how truly entrenched these habits are. It's not like, oh, I see this habit done. Like, I know I shouldn't be here, gone. No, they find new ways to show up and take over. So when we notice this happening, it's great. That means we are practicing so that we can continue to practice, to be familiar with how these habits show up so that we can release the urge to allow, to block and silence ourselves. So the practice of silent illumination is the process of recognizing the various ways we generate suffering for ourselves. All these entrenched habits of reacting to the present moment, not allowing thoughts and feelings to be here. And these really are habits of aversion. How they get in the way of staying with this just as this, being fully present with the moment as it is, being truly at ease with whatever is happening. Now, some people may think that sounds very passive and even selfish, like, to just be at ease ourselves. Actually, when we suffer because we succumb to this unhelpful habitual reactivity, we are much more prone to act in ways that cause harm and generate conflict instead of making peace. When we do the work to maintain moment-to-moment clear awareness, to notice when these unhelpful habitual reactivities are activated, and practice remembering not to believe in it and not to act on it without hating these habits, because that adds more aversion. Then we suffer less. And when we suffer less, we are less prone to act in ways that cause harm to others, cause harm to ourselves, cause harm and generate conflict in our lives. So, for example, when we are not agitated and we don't tense up our body and mind in order to block our thoughts and feelings, then we don't feel the need to find someone or something to blame for our suffering. We're very familiar with that. Like when we are suffering, our go-to thing is to find someone to blame. And by not perpetuating the habits of reacting with aversion, we are not adding hatred, ill will, harsh speech, divisive speech to the mix of the world. So by doing the work and so that we suffer less, we are already contributing to a slightly more peaceful world by our not adding hatred, aversion, harsh speech to it. The practice of silent illumination is not only about cultivating inner peace and refraining from causing harm and conflict. As I discussed in my book, Illumination, that talks about the practice of silent illumination, the pattern of habitual reactivities that show up in our meditation are often reflection of how we operate in the world, how we operate in life, the way we treat ourselves, how we treat other people. So what we do in meditation actually gives us some insight into the way we treat ourselves and others in the world. So for example, if in meditation, right, we find that we have been frustrated at ourselves for drifting off, right? You might remember in my guided meditations, like drifting off, not a problem. If you notice, like it's a problem, right? It's like I should not drift off, right? Then this may be relevant for you. If we have been frustrated at ourselves for drifting off from the method, and beat ourselves up, get really upset when the mind does not settle as quickly as we would like, then it should already be calm and settled. It should be on the method all the time. Notice all the should. And this is all because we are working very hard to make the mind calm and be at peace. Those are very good intentions. So we are very justified for getting mad at ourselves for the mind wandering. Very justified. There's a good reason for my beating myself up. If this is what we've been doing in our meditation, then perhaps we can see if the same habitual reactivity is activated when we try to bring peace to our community, to the world, or whatever work we engage in. For example, do we have an idea of how quote-unquote peace is supposed to look like? We might have an idea of how it's supposed to look like the way we think about a peaceful meditation, supposed to have nothing going on, no thoughts. So things going on that does not fit in our idea of how it's supposed to look like, problem, bad. We forget that when we have the idea of how quote-unquote peace is supposed to look like all the time, perhaps we forget the nature of existence. Forget that every moment is the coming together of causes and conditions. Every moment is co-created by all of us. Or are we habituated to blaming someone, something as the enemy that need to be eliminated with righteousness, like these dawn thoughts that come and disturb my peace, and I need to get rid of them, right? And I'm justified at giving rise to frustration, even hatred towards them. The thought of not their existence not allowed seems perfectly reasonable. Because we tell ourselves, because my goal is right, like this intention to calm the mind, to attain inner peace, that justifies beating ourselves up in meditation when the mind wanders. So we turn these thoughts into enemies to fight against, to direct our hatred towards. When these are just thoughts, have we been cultivating that habit, the habitual reactivity? Or are we upset that the change that we want to see is not happening quickly enough I've been working very hard to bring about this change. And in our mind, there is a deadline. It better happen in my lifetime, So like it's not happening quickly enough. And these people, they are disrupting or slowing down the progress, whatever we think. And so it is like when we get upset with ourselves when our mind is not settling quickly enough, or when our vexations we thought we had taken care of because we know they're there. When we notice these vexations are still showing up after practicing for 20 years, like it should have been gone by now. It should. So these are moments when we forget to cultivate total clear awareness, that we only can see maybe the one thing that is not good enough, that is obstructing progress, and not allowing into awareness, not notice all the progress that's been made, resulting from the hard work of many, many, many people. And when we ignore them or not allow them into awareness, we simply take them for granted and insist on focusing on the one thing that we have identified as a problem that justifies all the perpetuation of aversion. So you can see that the practice of silent illumination is not about turning away from suffering. That's why I am I admire Roshi Goslin's teaching about bearing witness. Stay with the present moment experience, and not pretend that we're fine, we're not suffering, or we are not bothered by it. I had a student who shared this experience about how he was engaging in one of the modes of operation that I talked about in my book about going into a trance mode. Like basically it's a way of avoiding to face, acknowledge what is going on, especially when they are very unpleasant and difficult and challenging. That he talked about how he'd been after our election in the U.S. That he'd been just telling of himself, all right, just like I'm fine, okay, just move on. And meanwhile, his father was very disturbed, very upset, and he told his father, "Is like, just move on, what is there to be upset about?" Because he had blocked out these feelings from his awareness by creating a foggy mind. That's another very common strategy. So we are not talking about turning away from suffering and pain. And instead, the practice of silent illumination is about allowing what arises to be fully felt and seen and heard, so that we can see, there is anger. But not only that, not be too quick to think that's all there is. When we stay with that moment to moment, we may notice maybe also sadness, maybe chronic pain, grief over perhaps the destruction of something that many of us had worked, and over a generation had worked very hard to build and to co-create, be it an ecosystem that we worked very hard to protect or restore, or maybe some kind of governing system that we and the past generation worked very hard to build and improve. So the practice of silent illumination is also a practice to remember right view. Right view in Buddhist context referring to view that's in accordance with wisdom and compassion. Right view that I've been alluding to, that every moment is the coming together of causes and conditions that are constantly changing. Oftentimes, the term sunyata, emptiness, used to refer to this. When we remember right view, remember that every moment is the coming together of causes and conditions, then we will be able to remember that our commitment to a cause and our actions are very important, but they are part of the causes and conditions, not all of it. However much we commit our life to it, the other causes and conditions are involved in bringing about the change we work very hard for. That means when some of those causes and conditions change or cease to be, the world we knew also ceases, as the Buddha talked about. This ceases, that ceases. Ceases meaning not that form no longer manifests, something else come together, change. Now here we are not talking about using Dharma concepts like emptiness or impermanence to block out the pain or to disengage. That's not what we are talking about. In my book, I talk about that as an intellectualizing mode. But it is to recognize that each moment is co-created and brand new, and each moment conditions future moments. So the question is, what do we do now in this moment to co-create, to contribute to peacemaking? And when we cultivate total clear awareness in the practice of silent illumination, moment-to-moment clear awareness, it allows us to see the situation clearly instead of with distorted view. Distorted view, it's our default. I default to exaggerate. Some depends on your predisposition. So either we exaggerate what we consider the negative and ignore, block out the positive. So I'm using positive and negative very generally. And when we do that, it brings about despair and hopelessness. It's always going to be like this. Or we do the opposite. We exaggerate the positive and minimize and ignore the negative. And this leads to naive optimism. And also, we get blindsided by the consequences of the trouble that is brewing. So, with the practice of silent illumination, we are cultivating this total clear of awareness by allowing everything to be here. They may not allow us to create a very coherent narrative, theory, way to make sense of what's going on. At least we are aware of all that is going on. And with this clear awareness, it allows us to notice opportunities that were previously obscured because of distorted view, so that we can seize this opportunity. Also, with this clear awareness, we are able to see and understand clearly what the present moment causes and conditions allow us to do, so that we can do it. Which is very different from sitting here wishing things were otherwise, and wallow in self-pity, blaming others, whatever it is that we do when we sit here and wish what's happening is not happening, which often motivates us from blocking things out. And this total clear awareness will also allow us to see that, like right now, the causes and conditions allow us to do this because certain causes and conditions are not here. Then we can see what we can do to create the causes and conditions that are not here, so that we can work towards the future we envision. So what we need to do is to be aware of sort of the habits of thinking to cling to an idea of how things has to be, and forgetting causes and conditions. It does not mean that we forget our goal. We keep our general direction of bringing peace and happiness for all in mind, and we work towards that direction. But we work with causes and conditions as they change. And how do we work with causes and conditions? By maintaining moment-to-moment clear awareness. And that is the practice of silent illumination. Thank you for your attention. I hope this is useful for your work in some way.